Check, check. Yes, yes. Jeez, we're alive. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Kazeem Kuteyi. I am from New Currency, and we are here at ISO Radio Stock Market Toronto for a full on takeover. Yes, so in the studio, I don't want to waste too much time. We have Nicko, Bruno from Adidem. Introduce yourself.
My name's Nicko. I'm from Toronto. I'm from Brampton specifically. I run a brand called Adidas Asterix in Toronto here.
Yeah, speak up, speak up. Don't be
Yeah,
shy.
sorry.
Yeah, man. Honestly, I think where can I start this? Because I think this is extremely freestyle, like I normally do. Um, I mean, over the years, I've been sort of like I've seen your brand really move from just kind of just images you see on Instagram to sort of like you sort of doing really interesting exploits in Toronto, where like every other person I see on the street is wearing the A hat. You know what I'm saying? And then recently me and you were in Tokyo,
hmm
and then I've seen you. Wait, no, actually no, we were in Korea together, but I've seen you in Paris.
hmm
So I just first of all, I just kind of want to first ask a very very basic question because I don't know if I actually know this. I don't actually think we've had this conversation, but like, how did you even sort of like even get into clothing and sort of like what is your entry point?
So I'm just gonna say I apologize. I'm kind of under the weather,
Mm.
so if I sound like kind of nasally, that's why. Um, I got into clothing through consumerism. So I was a consumer. I would buy I was very interested in clothing brands. I was very interested in clothing. Period. And then I found and grew a love for the brands and the people behind them.
Mm.
And it really opened my eyes to what you can develop from self. So, again, I think there's a reason why my brand has a specific taste level, is because my entry point, as you say, is not from a fashion school. It's not from cutting patterns. It's not from reading magazines from fashion. It's really like buying clothing and being like floored by how good this product was. So that's where I usually start when it comes to why I got into this. It's really to develop really the perfect t-shirt, I guess, would be like I was very interested in making the perfect shirt to my standard, because I started buying Supreme, Stussy, Margiela, etc. Your taste kind of evolves, and then you get to a point where you start as a fan, then you become a critic, and then a lot of people don't leave that area.
Mm.
And for me, I'm not really big on critiquing things without trying them myself.
Right.
So then I just put myself out there to try and
Right.
develop it for myself. Yeah.
Now that's amazing because I think like it goes to I think what I'm even getting from this is this idea there's a sort of pursuance of feeling where it's like you buying Supreme, Stussy, it made you feel a certain way and you're just like, oh actually is there a way for me to sort of chase a feeling through developing my own thing and then you also interested like you can just develop that for yourself but you're interested in actually sharing that, and that's the output that could be addendum.
I wouldn't say it's chasing a feeling, it's creating one. So
Creating, right, okay.
yeah, so again, those brands made me feel a way for sure.
Mm.
I internalized those feelings and I wanted to create something for my community, respectively for my friends essentially, because nothing like that at the time had existed.
Right.
Again, I'm from Brampton, so that's a suburb outside of Toronto, and the closest thing we had from our own city would be like, I don't know, Goodfoot, and then
Mm.
OVO actually comes after that.
Yeah.
Like on a more internationally known scale. And Goodfoot, although it was awesome, I was a big fan. I grew up around that store, going there often. I could never afford it, but I would just go to see the product. OVO obviously came out and started developing its product range, etc., around a centered person. Obviously, Drake being Drake, but it didn't feel like it was for me because although kind of a Drake fan by happenstance because you're from here,
Yeah.
like he was never my guy.
Mm.
So like it wasn't. I didn't have the affinity that I did with like Bape or LV from Nicko or Pharrell or Ye, etc. Right. So although I could appreciate the good business from something like a brand like OVO, I felt like there was something missing. So I don't know. I just took on the task to try to create it. It started with some pretty shitty stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I found that it was imperative to like make shitty stuff because I think what separated me from at least from a local lens was again my consumerism. I came into the game already having the best items. I purchased them. So when I'm making something, I'm comparing it to this Margiela shirt. So I'm at the beginning. It's obviously a far cry from Margiela, but like every time I reiterate it, it's getting closer and closer and closer until one day you just kind of have an awesome shirt.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think that's really interesting, and I actually want to even key on what you said about this idea of making shitty stuff 1st, and this idea, the power of iteration, right? Because I think like there's a lot of, I mean, like part of the the reason why I like interviewing people that are doing really interesting things is sort of like let's break down like let's bring out some transparency, like, and I really appreciate how transparent you are in this idea of like early on, like I remember when Joseph.
My first model, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So I remember,
brother.
yeah, exactly. So I remember Joseph Adamu like modeling Adidas first, and I think there was not even this narrative around, because I think you built such an interesting narrative around like sounds like it looks
Yeah.
right, but like back then when it was just Joseph modeling the clothes and it was just kind of like you testing things out. Did you go into Adidas thinking about a specific, like what was the narrative then, and then how did you get to this narrative of like sounds like it looks? Guys, that's a very
Yeah.
like specific positioning statement.
Well, if you look, I don't know how familiar you are with my brand, but if you do your homework and you see like the first lookbook that we've done with Joseph, for example, which is
Yeah.
a close friend of mine, you will definitely see more of like the brainchild of like a kid who's been enamored by those brands. Like it's like Undercover, Margiela, etc. There's like I even feel like in that collection, the first one I ever did, which was like I pieced together with literally no resources, but you'll see like there is like multi-plaid shirts, like different type of pant. Like it's more really riding the more avant-garde or fashion, quote unquote, side of clothing brand.
Yeah.
Right. And as my taste developed, although I do have an affinity for those things, I started, like we were just talking off mic.
Yeah.
I started to understand that clothing is not, or clothing brand is not only about clothing. Commerce is an important part of a brand. So how do you essentially put your idea in a product that's consumable for a mass population to a degree? So, and not saying that you have to make your brand Walmart mass consumable, but still ride the edge of something that has taste that people can get behind from a brand perspective. They feel seen when they wear it. It's a secret handshake. They feel like they're within a community. A lot of the messages I get from people is, I was in Dubai wearing your hat, and this other guy came up to me, and I had a conversation about it because he was familiar with it.
Right.
To me, it's like a secret handshake of that. I'm a Supreme kid, so that was Supreme for me at the beginning, before it became this mass appeal thing. Right? Obviously, to me, it's one of the best brands, if not the best brand ever. But
Right.
at the time, there was only other kids who would identify the Supreme item, not from the logo, but just from the item, come up to me and speak to me about it because they were within the know.
Yeah.
So I wanted to create a feeling similar to that
Yeah.
with what I was doing.
Yeah, I can identify with that too. Like I remember seeing your brand in London or something, and I was like, "How do you know?" I didn't know.
Yeah, yeah,
Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
I wouldn't even like introduce to myself. I was like, whether like, I wouldn't be like, "Oh, I'm from Toronto. I need Nicko." I'm curious to understand your entry point into the brand.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
like again, the secret handshake, and
Yeah.
then we can have like a conversation. And I think that's what that's the beauty of streetwear. Do you know what I'm saying? Is
Yeah,
that
yeah.
especially when it hasn't gone fully mass.
Exactly.
I think I can't stop anybody on the street and be like, "You're wearing Supreme," like.
Exactly.
Do you
At
know-
this point, yeah.
At this point, it's
yeah.
like,
Supreme is kind of, it's become part of normal life, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's a part of any brand owner that wants that as well, right? So I'm not gonna say everybody wants that, but there's some degree of wanting to be accepted publicly for what you create on a mass scale for anybody who creates anything, I would say, right?
100%, yeah.
Obviously, there's the art side of it where it's really personal and you're making it for yourself. But I heard a take before, it's not really art if it stays in your bedroom, unless it comes outside and people make opinions about it and you deal with the opinions. To me, that's what creates what art is, right?
Right.
So being objective, you can like something or dislike something, but it made you feel something. To me,
Yeah.
I would classify that as something that's art, right?
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
so-
Yeah, I mean, I just went through that.
Type shit.
Where, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Where it's like I put out a piece of like, you know, whatever, and some people like, you know, like there's like, you know, it's like we make a magazine, right? And somebody was like, oh, I don't really like the graphic design. And I was like, oh, perfect.
Yeah.
I actually love that feedback.
Yeah, yeah,
You know what
yeah.
I'm saying? And I'm able to like maybe grow from that or like say that actually maybe it doesn't even matter to me.
Yeah.
But I like that, like what I put out can create a conversation.
Yeah.
You know, I think what I also want to even key into, like what you just said, is that this idea of like mass, right? And I'm curious because like, you definitely do you want Adidas to get to like a supreme level in terms of just mass consumption, and then if you wanted to get to that level, how do you maintain the secret handshake vibe?
That's a good question. I think I have a very thorough understanding of who I am, so I think I'm comfortable with saying that I would love adding them to get to that supreme level.
100%,
right?
yeah.
And the reason why I say that is because, to me, at this point, I've developed so many skills while developing this business, from photography to graphic design to e-commerce to all these skills that I've developed, self-trained. If I wanted to build a brand to hit a different market and grow in a different way, I would just build a new brand.
Right.
But I understand that the brand I'm currently building, I think its intention is to be that for our community.
Right.
So as much as it grows and the secret handshake becomes less of a secret, I don't think that's a negative thing in my personal
Right.
opinion, because to me, like no matter what, like again, I don't currently wear Supreme,
Yeah.
but there's not gonna be one season where I don't go check out what is happening.
Right.
Because I have an affinity for this business and brand, and
Right.
and I would say that for a few brands actually, but yeah. So I think I'm comfortable with it growing to that level.
Yeah.
And to me, if I can be transparent, like I am building a few other brands right now with different people to capitalize on different styles of what a clothing brand or a brand can be specific in general, right?
Right.
And those are not meant to be supreme.
Gotcha.
Those are meant to be. One of them is meant to be maybe more elevated and tasteful for a specific consumer who has a specific amount to spend to look a specific way, versus one is supposed to be mass consumption.
Yeah.
To be driven for sales, for example, right?
Yeah.
To feed a few other people's families, etc. Right? So just understanding what the intention of your business or brand, it really gives you like legs to really walk in the right direction, right? So
Yeah, I think essentially, I think what even to that even question, like my question about this idea of maybe maintaining the secret handshake. I think like definitely I think like I love that you want your brand to get to the supreme level. I think like we should all sort of like try and like want to attain excellence and also kind of like reach more people, which allows for like, you know, more business and stuff like that.
Correct.
You know, and building capital, which
Correct.
obviously allows for other things to happen. But I even think like there could be, I mean, this is like mine, like a thought, like maybe the secret handshake is still maintained through like collaboration, right?
Yeah.
Where you're able to like maybe, because I think what's interesting is like, you know, you collaborate with like a specific thing, like maybe a specific brand or person or artist that you're really interested in and having the mass know about. And maybe it's through that, like if I see somebody wearing like Adidas Cardinal Official,
fire.
do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In the streets of New York, I'd be like, and I can stop them and be like, yo, do you know who Cardinal Official is? Blah 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 blah. There's a conversation
yeah.
that's being started there. So maybe that's the thing, but hey, that's just my own little like yeah. But I want to move on to another sort of, I think what you've I remember. I think being in Tokyo. Oh yeah, in Tokyo. Like I think you did like this pop up in Tokyo, and like there are a few people from Toronto that were there that were supporting you, and like you have like I think I make a joke. It's like you have all the kids. Do you know what I'm saying? Like really like supporting you through like wearing the brand, and also you've really done a really great job at like bringing people under your wing, in terms of mentoring and like all these like interesting kids like interning for you
Okay.
to the point where they also go create their own brands.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
like the fact that there's this domino effect of like you're creating space for other realities to exist, right? So then I think about, I guess like our new issue is called Artists in the City.
Okay.
And so I'm always thinking about like the city, right? So, are you going into like what's your sort of relationship with like mentorship and building a brand and like yeah, I'm just curious to understand your thinking about like how you sort of like build something for like young people for them to like really connect to.
Well, that's a nuanced answer. I'll try to answer it here in one sitting, but I think it's like a 5
It's
hour conversation.
100%. Yeah.
Maybe I'll start by saying, be the voice you want to hear in the world. So when I was developing my brand, I didn't have anywhere to intern. I was learning with my own skin in the game. So I'll start by saying I know how hard that is. So using your own money, I'm pretty savvy, so I was able to like figure out how to make some ends while developing my brand, but it wasn't easy by any means. Using your own money, trying to find resources, with especially in a city like Toronto, where there wasn't many brands that existed like in the realm that we do before this. So there wasn't anyone to share resources with. So like if you're from, to give you context, if you're from New York, let's just use Supreme as the example. If you're from New York, and you worked at Supreme, you get derivatives like Noah, you get derivatives like Awake, you get
Yes.
derivatives like Fucking Awesome, because
Yes.
all the resources can be just shared through all the thing. Obviously, New York as a city, not even as a brand city, has hundreds of years on Toronto, so they're just far in advance of what we're doing.
Yeah.
So it wasn't essentially my goal to set out to be that thing, but I realized that we needed that thing. So I just kind of just stepped into the shoes. So the saying is, build it and they will come. I started developing my brand. When I was developing it, I was doing all the photography, all the graphic design, all the online stuff, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And at the time, I'm not complaining because I'm in a time of learning so much. I'm just loving this. It's awesome. But I realized my brand's not really looking like how Supreme's graphics are looking, or Stussy's graphics are looking, or Margella or whatever. It's not really looking like that because I'm realizing I'm only one man. I'm good at graphic design. I'm not great though. I'm good at photography. I might not be great. I know I might have instances where I do great things, but like I know great photographers. I know great graphic designers. I know great et cetera, right? So
Right.
I think it was imperative to get help, right? And naturally, as I built it to a level that was my taste level and kind of shined through the noise that was happening in Toronto, or lack of noise that was happening in Toronto, they seen it. And respectfully, they came to me. So when they came to me, I found it was interesting. At the beginning, you can't really pay somebody because you're not even getting paid. You don't got no money,
Yeah,
right?
facts.
So what can I give you? I can give you what I've learned, right? So this is what I learned. Insert intern here. They're trading their time. Most people trade time for money. They're trading time for information.
Yeah.
And I think if you can get to a place of understanding that that's part of the creative journey, you'll be unstoppable. And I feel like they all kind of conquered that because
Yeah.
when you're 16, for example, and you really want something, the thing your parents tell you to do is go get a job, which is an important part of life because you got to understand what you like and don't like.
Yeah.
They don't tell you to go get information about it. Go get information is what those kids did. And to me, I realized early that I was actually a better teacher than I was designer. So I really leaned into it. And when I say that by saying I understood that everybody needed different things. So I might have an intern who's incredible at graphic design, but lacks confidence. So I'm just gonna instill the confidence there. They don't need me to hold this computer for them to design. They're a better designer than me. I might have an intern who lacks in structure. So I tell them, you got to be here every day at this time. You have to be here, not them. You. Everybody needs different things. So once I understood that, I think, again, the transparency of my life to them was what really cut through, because not only was I, in my opinion, like a friend or someone that was giving them information, I was literally their best friends.
Right.
Regardless of age. I never made it seem like there was a weird power dynamic that I was the boss and you. I don't really design my studios that way. For me, I've had 3 studios since I've started my brand, and all of them are all open format on one table. Everybody, even if it's a new intern, their opinion is as valuable as mine or X's in regards to how we're developing the business. Right? So just understanding what each person needed was really the key to success for me. And I feel like it really developed a thorough relationship that even though some of them don't work with me anymore, we'll be best friends for the rest of our life. There's really nothing that can separate us. They're on their own creative journeys, and I think they're all figuring it out. I think even in this last month, like 3 or 4 of them have had their own pop-ups doing their own thing. Even today, right now, even last weekend, some of my interns did a pop-up at Lost and Found or one of those brands. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. On Ossington. So like they're developing their own perspective. Again, I started from a perspective of looking at Margiela, etc. So at the beginning, my brands kind of look like that.
Yeah.
Right. For them, they started from working here. This is their first brand, so their brand's gonna kind of look like that until it doesn't, though. Right? You have to kind of have a starting point, and then you just curve it to your own taste. So when it comes to the relationship with the youth or the generation that's under me in Toronto, I think it was imperative for me to just essentially just provide a space where they feel comfortable, seeing their ideas are valued, and for them to understand that not everything works, and this is not a creative venture where you just throw money at things and it happens. You have to really be involved, develop it on a personal level. It's a personal thing, especially when it's your brand. Like my brand is so much me. Yeah, it's flaws and all. Yeah. So I think that was kind of the relationship that really stuck to them. That's why we've developed, or I think that's why we've been able to reach that generation for Toronto. Because again, I don't really go out, like you often know that. But if I'm gonna go somewhere, I'm gonna go to their pop-up. I'm gonna go to their event. I don't really go to like Nike branded stuff or Adidas branded stuff because like I don't really care for it that much. You know what I'm saying? It's not that and I fuck with both brands, but it's not that important to me. This is more important to me because I have my own skin in the game on this. I'm kind of have like stock invested in these people, right? So I want to see them succeed. I go and respectfully, I think the key, I'll wrap this up, but the key of that thing is, although I was teaching them, they were teaching me a lot. So
no, that's amazing. Honestly, that gives me a lot of perspective on how you've really built. I mean, from the outside looking in, I just love the fact that you've brought these people, these young like creatives under your wing, like really provide. Because I mean, me too. Growing up, like. I have no like resources or anything or whatever. Like, you know, I've had to learn things on my own. I had some great mentors as well. But I think for even like what I do, like I try to just be an ear, be like, you know, somebody who was like, I even like contribute to strategy, like on the low, just be like, all these kids were just like, yo, you want to do it that way? Okay, I made a mistake there, so I don't want you to make that same mistake.
Exactly.
You know, like, so I think it's very important. Just to wrap this up, one last burning question I have. I want to talk about the hat.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think the hat is like, you know, we were talking about like, I think that's everyone is wearing that hat.
Okay.
So how did you create like why does everyone want the hat?
For many reasons, but like if I can take my unbiased hat off, no pun intended, but I would say because it's familiar. So as I was developing my business and brand, I was making products, and some people like products and would buy them here and there. But I think for the style of brand that I'm developing, they needed something that they can gravitate to easily and not have to think too hard on what it is. So, granted, things like socks, underwear, accessory items, hats, right, are familiar to most individuals. Like any person living in the North American hemisphere is gonna understand what a new era hat is.
Right.
They have some affinity to it. Even if you don't wear them now, there's probably a past life where you wore them as a youth or you had a favorite team, etc. Right? So there's some familiarity. So I think the popularity of my hat stands on the legs of sportswear being familiar to this North American culture, right?
Right.
So granted, when developing the logo on the hat, my initial idea was to develop something that feels like it's been in the league forever.
Yeah.
So obviously, you can design whatever you want, but I wanted something that felt classic and familiar. So when you see the brand logo, like this hat that I'm
Yeah.
wearing currently, this is actually a collaboration with another Toronto younger brand. This hat, to me, when you see this logo, if you never watched baseball, for example, and you put all the teams in a row, this wouldn't stand out as odd because it has a classic feel like a LA Dodgers or New York Yankees feeling. And although the Toronto Blue Jays is a very popular team, the logo is awesome to me, but it's too complex. It's not as easy to digest as a New York Yankees or LA Dodgers or Boston Red Sox, etc. Right? So I think once one understanding or looking at how to develop a style of product, I realized that those brands don't ever have to reinvent the wheel ever again because they got it perfect at the beginning through simplicity. So I knew that when I was approached from New Era to do the project, I needed to create something that was simple enough for my dad to wear, but also cool enough for my 16-year-old friend or niece or nephew to wear as well, right? And not look out of your age.
Right.
So I think this hat was kind of that perfect item for me to like maybe reach different markets that weren't necessarily interested in my product or clothing because it might have been too stylish or too colorful or too etc. Right? Because again, we all work in creative here. So other than Kazeem who wears black every day, we can wear color and justify why we wear color.
Yeah.
JM's gonna go to a radio station. No one's gonna tell her you're too colorful.
Yeah.
Right? But if you go to office environment, it's not really gonna align that well. But you could wear a baseball cap to an office environment. You can wear a baseball cap to a radio station. You can wear it to your flight to catch your flight. You can wear it at your travel destination. So it's a product that's easily understandable. So I feel like that's why people gravitated to it really easily, and it just kind of exploded in that way. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. Will, thank you so much for this
I know it.
conversation.
Thank you for having me.
I learned a lot, and I think like a lot of kids who listen to this back will like take a lot from this.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah. So Nicko, Bruno, I don't know what my phonetics today. Nicko, Adidem. This is New Currency Radio. Takeover at ISO Stack Market. We out. Thank you.
Thank you.